Hey, Joy family, happy Thursday. It is great to be able to come to you again today. Hey, last night those storms were something, weren't they? Our prayer time got cut a little bit short where we were having a virtual prayer meeting. Glad we didn't try to have it outside, but we still had a great time praying together. If you have any needs because of storm damage or anything like that, reach out to us. Shoot me an email, reach out to us via the Facebook page or our website and let us know, and we'll see how we can get out and help you. Now, tonight, our ladies will be meeting. They'll be meeting outside. The weather should be holding off pretty well for tonight. So they'll be meeting down at the Dell in Haddon Heights. So you can meet down there at 7 o'clock tonight. And then Sunday, we're continuing our journey through Romans. We're in Romans chapter 12, just finishing up Romans 12. And we've been having a great time going through this letter. Some say the greatest letter ever written. So you want to join us Sunday via our live stream. Go to our website or our Facebook page or our YouTube page, and you can join us as we worship together at 10 a.m. this coming Sunday. But today we are finishing up a devotional series that we've been in. We've been talking about going 10 rounds in the fight of your life. And what these are the 10 greatest struggles of our heart that keep us from loving God and loving others as God desires us to do. And really, these struggles, this is what's at the core of God's 10 commandments. So we've been looking at these 10 commandments. In fact, the first 4 of the 10 commandments talk about our challenge in loving God. The last 6 about our challenge in loving others. And we've been getting to the heart of it, the struggles behind just these commands. They're not just a bunch of do's and don'ts, but they reveal these struggles and how we can trust God better, because only God can change our heart. So today we're entering the ring for round 10. Isn't that exciting? And this is a biggie. It's in Exodus chapter 20, verse 17, and here's what it says. It says, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's." Now, when we place this in context, we'll see how big this is. Because really these first 4 commandments, they're about loving God. And the first commandment of those 4 talks about, if we're struggling to be in control instead of God, it's impossible to love him. Instead, we find other things to worship. We take his name in vain. We make graven images. We use his day for ourselves. The second 6 commandments, this one is the key, the last one. Because if we covet what others have, it's impossible to love others. We won't respect authority. We'll murder or have hatred. We'll give in to lust. We'll steal. We'll lie to get what we covet. So what is this command really talking about? Well, let's break it down. The word covet. Covet really means desire. Actually, more closely, it's an uncontrolled desire or a strong, unhealthy desire for something. And what is it a desire for? Well, it says, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. We already talked neighbor, anybody that's around their house. And really here, it's meaning household. In fact, it says the word covet twice. The first is the commandment, and then the second explains what a household is. Or what the house is. It includes all that is under somebody's roof, right? Their wife, their servants, their livestock, or anything. We're not to want or desire this stuff. Desire what others have in an unhealthy way. And this is easy to do, isn't it? I mean, it's what's at the heart of consumerism in our age today, that advertisers love to create this desire of wanting something you don't have. The grass is always greener, or keeping up with the Joneses, and you kind of have to have that. So really, what's behind this commandment, not to covet? Well, here's the heart struggle of this. It's our struggle for more. Our struggle to have more. We don't feel we have enough, so we want more. So what we have is never enough. And as a result, we look around and we find that which other people have, and it's something different. So we say, well, I want that. And thinking that will be enough to finally satisfy us. But even if we get that, we still want more. how does this play out? What does it look like when we're coveting then in our struggle for more? Well, sometimes it creates a misplaced focus. We can become obsessed with those things that others have and those things that we feel will make us happy instead of what God has given us or placed in our care. So we begin to focus on things that we don't have rather than what we do have. Ecclesiastes 5 talks about this. It says, "He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income." This is also vanity or wasted, uselessness. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Stuff is not going to satisfy, and it will never be enough, and it won't last. So focus on what God's given us rather than what we don't have. Also, it plays out not only with a misplaced focus, but it builds on that where we start to build resentment. We begin to build resentment in others. Others have something, we say, why can't I be like them? Man, what did they do to do that? Deserve that? I know their life. They're not as good as I am, or they don't deserve what they have. I do. And what that turns into building resentment is jealousy, right? We're jealous of what other people have. And again, this resentment towards others, it makes us want to do things. And that's also how it plays out then. We start to act out. We start to act out to get what we think we deserve or to get what other people have. So we take matters in our own hands for the struggle for more, right? And this action usually takes the form of one of the previous 5 commandments in loving others, right? We take vengeance, we commit adultery, or we're not satisfied. We steal or we lie in order to get from others what we desire. So real simply, this is the commandment, to not covet. Now, how do we win this round? Again, we don't desire more. We don't desire what we don't have. We look at the focus, we put the focus back on God, and we trust that God will give us whatever we need. In fact, in Philippians chapter 4, isn't that what Paul says? "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus." God has everything. God can give us everything. So if God gives us something, it's what we need. And that's really important when it comes to coveting, is we need to be able to make a distinction between what we need and what we want or what we desire. I desire a lot of things, but I don't have to covet them. When I place my focus on what I have, and I thank God for what I have, and I'm faithful with what I have. So when we want to overcome, when we want to win this struggle, this fight, right, in the fight of our lives, then we need to be content with what God gives us. And when we're content, when we place that trust in God and say, God, I trust that you know what you're doing and you're going to give me exactly what I need, you will provide for me. Then you know what happens? Instead of coveting, we can rejoice with others. Instead of being jealous when so-and-so gets a promotion that we might have been up for, or somebody gets a new car or something, instead of saying, man, why don't I have that? I can't believe they got to get that. They had a new car a couple years ago. Why can't I ever? Instead of that, we can rejoice with them. We can say, man, I'm so happy for you. God, I'm happy that God's giving you what you need. So really, this helps us love others. And this is a real key in this loving of others, is to be content with what we have so we can appreciate other people and not trying to get what they have. Now, really, as we close this message, and as we really close this whole series on these 10 rounds in the fight of our lives, I want to bring together what we learned real briefly. Because all of these commandments, they relate to each other. Just as loving relationships with others flow with our loving relationship with God, our last 6 struggles of our heart flow from the first 4. And if we can find victory in these, we find victory in the final 6. As a matter of fact, if we find victory in the first struggle of our heart that we talked about, you will have no other gods before me. It's a struggle for control. Then we can find victory against our struggle for independence, which is the first of loving others, number 5. Honor your father and mother. Isn't that cool how the first and the fifth relate to each other? And as well as our struggle for control when we're offended, which is number 6, which is murder. So number 1, finding victory in allowing God to have control, it enables us also to not try to grab control when it comes to loving others. And we can honor our authority in our lives. And when we're offended, we don't have to struggle for control. And what that all accomplishes, it accomplishes humility. And then as we talk about the struggle for fulfillment in commandment number 2, you will have no graven images before me. Then we can find victory against our struggle for satisfaction, number 7, which is don't commit adultery, right? And that accomplishes faithfulness. You see, if we can win these rounds, we accomplish humility in our lives, we accomplish faithfulness in our lives. If we find victory over our struggles to manipulate using God, which is taking God's name in vain, you remember that? Well, there's a couple commandments that talk about manipulating one in our love for others. The one is our struggle for provision, to manipulate our provision, which is stealing. You will not steal, and we'll find victory there. And then when we're not trying to manipulate God, we're also won't try to manipulate the truth when it comes to others, which is commandment number 9, bearing false witness. And all of that, not trying to manipulate, accomplishes trust in our lives. And then finally, when we can find victory over our 4th commandment in loving God, which is keep the Sabbath holy, really, that is our struggle for success, right? Then we find victory against our struggle for more, which is number 10, which we just talked about, coveting. And you know what this accomplishes in our life? Contentment. So when we can win these battles in the fight of our life, these heart struggles in trusting God, do you know what happens in our lives? We not only love God better and love others better, but we walk with humility. We walk with faithfulness. We walk being able to trust God and trust others. And we walk in contentment. And all of that gives us freedom and joy, infectious joy, that others will see what God is doing in our lives. And we have an opportunity to share Jesus with others. So these fight of our lives, they're not just a list of do's and don'ts, these 10 commandments. They reveal our heart struggle. And when we find victory in them, it changes our lives and our witness for others. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. I hope you enjoyed looking at 10 commandments, maybe in a little bit of a different way. And I hope you start to walk in each of these 10 commandments, these 10 rounds in the fight of our lives. And we can be like Rocky and say, victory, as God works in our lives. Have a great day, Joy.